So we'd like to welcome the counselors from the Student Wellness Center in today's session. Today we have with us Dr. Anjali Bhatia, then Mr. Shaukat Ali and Ms. Anjali Gadgi. And they're all counselors and counseling psychologists and clinical psychologists at the SWC. So a bit of background, why we thought we'd do a session like this. For people from the SWC, this is our weekly departmental meetings. So we call them Friday meetings. We have them once a week. We've been doing it for over 10 years now. And this is the time when the entire department, the students, the faculty, some of the other project staff, we get together and we discuss matters, both academic, professional, sometimes things which are on the borderline of, say, life, campus life, for example, or maybe some issues and challenges we are facing. Sometimes we come together to do some departmental events and so on. So this is the time when the entire departmental community gets together. So that's the venue. Now, in the last few months, we have been talking, maybe in the last year and a half after the lockdown, certain other issues have been cropping up in the discussions, mental health issues, isolation issues, and I think this is common across the institute, maybe across institutions over the world. And I'm sure you're also familiar with, among the other students. So what we thought would be nice is if professionals from the SWC joined us, and one is talk to us about, what exactly the Wellness Center does. It's for students and in the institute, but it will be nice if you can give some more details about it. An overview of what SWC offers, what sort of support it can give, and how students can reach out. Secondly, these points about stress and isolation, maybe other health issues. Is there something we can do as individuals? How do I recognize it? Can I do something if I see my friend go through it? These topics have been popping up in the conversation. So we thought we'd hear from you. And over to you at this point. We'll hear whatever you have to say, and hopefully we'll have some time for question answers.
Yes.
So
Sure.
Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and we really are looking forward.
Yes, sure. So thank you, Professor Sahana, for inviting us. And as you have provided the basic outline about what you have been looking out from the session, so we thought we can have a very crisp session based on the the questions you have provided us, and then we'll mainly keep it open for the question and answer thing. Okay, so my name is Anjali. I am a clinical psychologist and working with as a part of a core counseling team, Student Wellness Center, IIT Bombay. And I have my colleagues with me, Dr. Anjali Bhatia and Shaukat Ali. Okay, so let's begin with the session today. So basically, we are thinking of keeping it more of an interactive, and if we get the responses from the participants also, it will be really helpful. So maybe Shaukat, can you go to the next slide? Let's start with the yes. So as we have been here talking about the mental health and mental health concerns, probably stress is one of the very important part of when we look at the overall mental health. So we would really like to hear from the participants what is their understanding of a stress, or what does it means to them. So if you can unmute yourself, or you can message in the chat box, anything would be great. So just your inputs on what is stress according to you all, individual responses, or it would be really great to hear.
Maybe people can type in the chat box.
Yeah, they can type in the chat box too. Feeling pressured. Yeah, I could see someone has mentioned feeling pressured, fear of uncertainty and a clarity. Very, very close. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes. An emotional state that makes you feel stuck. Yeah, so maybe you find it sometimes very challenging to respond to certain situational factors also, and also yes, to your own emotional state where you are sometimes very unsure how to go ahead and how to deal with certain emotional concerns. Yes, that can also add to the stress. Fear of uncertainty, clarity, yes, many times so many situational factors do not give us a clarity or how we can go ahead with them. Yes, definitely that also one of the factor which adds to the stress. Yes, yes, yes. So going ahead with a very one of the definition given by Hans Selye for the stress. Shaukat, can you go to the previous slide? I think. Yes. So it talks about a non-specific response of the body to any demand upon it. So now in this conversation, when different responses were shared by you all regarding what stress means to you all, this definition talks about a non-specific response. That means definitely it is different for everyone. Everyone will have a different perception of a demands. Everyone will have a different perception when they will have to face certain challenges, and the severity and intensity of the stress is also different for everyone. Like for example, if we take any situational demand, like probably a pandemic situation right now, and if I ask all of you to probably rate the amount of stress you went through during this period on the scale of 0 to 10, I'm sure it will be different for everyone, and there would be so many other components also involved into it. So this definition, very crisp definition, talks about it is a response which is different for the everyone, and it is a very non-specific response of an individual when the demands or challenges are imposed on the person. So let's go ahead and see what are the different components of a stress. So in general, we can divide it in the 4 basic components. So physiological components, you can observe and you can feel the stress through the physiological components, like sometimes headache, increased heart rate. There are emotional components, experiencing a very dysfunctional emotional experiences. Like someone has mentioned in the responses that stress is also emotional state when that makes you feel stuck. So sometimes certain emotions which are doesn't allow an individual to continue with their day-to-day routine in a functional way. So maybe yes, that is the emotional component to the of the stress. The example which I have shared is the anxiety. Then there are behavioral components. So sometimes we can observe certain common behavior when we have been experiencing a stress, which involve withdrawal from certain situations, avoidance, or maybe sometimes overdoing or over engaging in certain behaviors. So that we can take an example of addiction. It can be behavioral addiction also, substance addiction also. That is a behavioral component of a stress. And the cognitive, about our own thoughts, about our own way of thinking, about the perception about a specific challenge or a demand, is another component of a stress. So let's go ahead from here, and I think Shaukat, Mr. Shaukat will talk about the further areas from here.
Yes.
Hi, Shaukat.
Hi. So, I'm one of the counselors in SWC, and interestingly, I'm doing my research also in cognitive science at IIT Kanpur. So, I'm a part-time research student at IIT Kanpur. So, I'm developing a kind of chatbot for delivering psychotherapy for chronic mental disorders. So yeah, I just gave a simple introduction about me. Yeah, Anjali explained very well about what is stress and what are the reactions of this stress. So there are physiological, cognitive, emotional, and at different levels. And the response is non-specific, like for every person will react to a stress in different way. So now we are thinking seeing the coping strategies to stress is like most of the time we are using maladaptive coping strategies to respond to stress. In a maladaptive coping, we are trying to detach from our feelings and emotions. That's what is happening. And it can be beneficial in survival and abusive situation, especially during childhood. We did these coping strategies in our childhood when we were helpless and when these coping strategies were essential to do. But now we are adults, we are mature, but still we are continuing to use those coping strategies, and it's most often it's not essential or not needed, and also it's harmful, and when using it continuously it will lead to kind of psychological disorders also. So generally we are using three kinds of coping strategies. One is avoidance, and the other one is overcompensation, and the third one is surrender coping. So I hope you all will be familiar about this situation, because it's keep repeating in our daily life. Like we are using these things very often. Yeah. So like we know the avoidance coping is somehow we are trying to detach ourselves from the situation, or from facing the situation, or from facing the reality. Like imagine that you have an assignment and you are finding it very difficult because you doesn't know like which paper you have to refer, and what kind of structure these assignments should have. So when you are looking at as a whole this work as an assignment, you may find it as a demanding thing on you. And then sometimes what we will do, instead of thinking of it, we will try to just avoid the situation, and we may end up watching TV series, and we may keep talking to someone, or we may get addicted to self-soothing behaviors like video games and all these things. So these are the examples of avoidance behavior, and this we are doing in many of our stressful situations. But what happens actually, like when we avoid the situation, again the demand is on us. It is not going away from us. So we are postponing and we are avoiding the situation. That more it become a cumulative stress then, because we are having more and more demands when we are avoiding the situations. So the next kind of coping is overcompensation. In overcompensation, we are reacting to the stress in a overcompensation mode. Like we may blame others, we may get angry, or we may become irritable. And sometimes what we will do, we will try to make things very perfect in the feeling that I'm defective. Like my work may not look good. So I will try to refer a lot of journals. I may try to edit it again and again. And so sometimes we will do this perfectionism. And one of the major psychological disorder, OCD, is like perfectionism is part of this OCD sometimes. These obsessive compulsive disorders, like we are having a lot of repetitive thoughts, and we are doing repetitive actions based on these thoughts. We are yielding to our negative thoughts, and we are making again and again things more perfect, symmetric, and trying to make sure that things are fine. So this is the way we are doing the overcompensation. And the last part is surrendering to the situation. Feel that I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, I'm defective, I may not be able to manage this situation, and then cry, feel sad, give up, a kind of giving up things. So in surrender mode, yeah, definitely people go to depression, low mood, and social withdrawal. So this is the way we are reacting to stress in a maladaptive way. At the same time, there are adaptive coping strategies, and many of us doing these adaptive coping strategies. That's why we are being productive. We are able to go ahead in our work. So once we are doing things, and once things are happening on the right way, that means we are adapting to stress, we are coping to stress in an adaptive way. If things are not going well, then we can understand, we can realize that we are coping to the situations in a maladaptive way. So to cope with stress in an adaptive way, like we have to use our own internal coping strategies. Like us as a human being, we all have a lot of strengths, and we have a lot of resources inside us. We may not have to contact anyone, we may not do anything externally. We have a lot of strengths. So recognizing our own strengths, remembering our past successful situations, having imageries where we are getting praised, we are getting appreciated for our work. So remembering and using our own strength is one of the best coping methods, so that we don't have to depend on anyone else for that. So it's better, like we all should have a list of our own resources. Like once I am in a stressful situation, how I can manage by myself, that we should have a list of things we can do. And also, yeah, definitely, it's not enough sometimes only using our own resources. Sometimes we may have to take help from others, and we may have to create a support system. We should have a kind of at least some people to reach out. We should know, like with whom I am close, and whom I am trusting, and so that I can talk to someone, I can get some kind of help and support from someone. So we should have a kind of support system in that way. And as a residential campus, it is most helpful, because having a good friend circle, and also getting connected to your professors, and having good connection, good support, getting good support from your professors will be very helpful. So we can make a lot of in a way we can enhance our support system through connections, and also through good life habits, like engaging in sports activities and other things. Also we can use it as a kind of support system. Also, yeah, that's come later, following healthy routine activities, and having good habits, and also engaging in sports activities regularly, doing physical exercise regularly, eating properly, sleeping on time. So all these healthy routine activities will help a lot to be resilient in our life. And it will help us to cope up with stressful situation in a more beneficial way. And yeah, definitely organizing daily schedule, we all know that it's essential to reduce this stress. And also having self-awareness, we should know our own strengths and weaknesses, and how we can manage the situations, how much I am able to manage the situations, and from where I can get help. All this awareness we should have. And also sometimes problem solving is very important. Instead of emotional coping, we can have a task oriented coping. Like instead of being sad, instead of being irritable and angry, we can think about a task oriented coping. Like we can see the alternatives, like I have a situation, and what are the alternative solutions for this, and which one I can choose, and I can take a decision making, and through that I can solve the problem. So this is one of the best method sometime to cope with stress, because stress get escalated when we are doing emotional coping, when we are surrendering to our emotions. So, and yeah, definitely when things are not working, when we are unable to manage by ourselves, and even with the help of our friends, then we can go for professional help, and student wellness center is there to help you. So the next part, what happens when we are being stressful, and when this stress get escalate into a kind of mental disorders. Yeah. So here we can see people get socially withdrawn when they are stressful, and when they are depressed, recently I came across a student that he was not he was not going out of the hostel or especially out of his room for 2 months, and he was keep doing some video games and not interacting with the friends and not interacting even with the parents. So this is one of the major symptom of psychological problems, psychological disorders. And also absenteeism, when someone is not attending classes and ignoring academic responsibilities, not submitting assignments on time, not involving in the project and research properly, and not meeting the supervisor regularly. And if, as friends, if you are noticing some of your colleagues are not engaging and not being responsible in their academics, instead of blaming or instead of seeing this as a kind of irresponsibility, we have to see that most probably that person may be in a stressful situation, or maybe in a psychological disorder. So yeah, the one of the major symptom of depression is anhedonia. Anhedonia means inability to enjoy the activities which the person used to enjoy earlier. So once a person end up in a low mood or depression, most often they may not find interest in doing anything, and that will take them away from friends and others, and that will end up in social withdrawal also. All these are connected. And on the other side, some people will become excessively worried, and they will keep thinking about what will happen next, and they are worried about each and everything in their life. And this worry makes them very stressful in the sense that they have frequent this autonomous nervous system arousal symptoms like heartbeat increases, dryness in the mouth, heaviness in the head, and many symptoms we know. Like when people get worried, they will keep going through this HP axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and this repetition of this worrisome behaviors and keep in this loop of worrying is not good, and it will take a lot of energy, and it will take physical energy and cognitive energy. And when it take physical energy, we will feel tired, and when it take cognitive energy, you may not be able to focus, and you may not be able to productive in your research and other things. Yeah, and excessive guilt, feeling helplessness, and crying spells, frequent crying spells, all these shows that the person may be in a mental health issue, or the person may be in a psychological, facing a psychological disorder. So we can think about our own problems, and also we can see whether our friends, anyone of having any of these situations. So yeah, we sometimes understanding all these things, and when we are able to draw a line between what is the normality and what is the abnormality, then yeah, we will have more awareness when we should take professional help. So especially when all the psychological symptoms interfere with our daily functioning, occupational functioning, academic functioning, family functioning, social functioning, then we can say this is a psychological disorder. Some kind of fear, some kind of sadness, that is part of our life. And only when it interferes with our daily functioning, then only we have to think about taking a professional help. Yeah. So I think Anjali can take over.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Thank you.
Shaukat.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Shaukat, for sharing more in detail about maladaptive coping and adaptive coping strategies, and helping to understand differentiating between the distress and the disorder. So now another point which I would like to talk about is what kind of services Student Wellness Center provides, and how to reach out to the Student Wellness Center. So basically at Student Wellness Center, we have a team of counselors, and we do engage into a face-to-face individual counseling sessions. Right now we have started taking a face-to-face sessions at our office with some constraints. I mean, not at a full fledged, but we have started taking students to see on the face-to-face mode. during the pandemic period, when it was very difficult to go ahead with the face-to-face sessions, we used to conduct the sessions through the video conferencing or through the audio calls also. We also do engage in a group counseling sessions, need-based if required, but basic purpose or basic aim of the Student Wellness Center is to conduct a individual counseling session with the students. Along with that, we also have a psychometric assessment. So these are the assessment. We have a psychometrician working with us who conducts this assessment. This assessment works as a guideline for us to understand more about the concerns or problems students have been facing. So conducting psychometric assessment is another part of a function of a Student Wellness Center core counseling team. Shaukat, if you can change to the next slide. Yes, so I will just introduce the team, core counseling team. Ms. Himana Reddy, you can see first on the left hand side top. Then Dr. Anjali Bhatia, Ms. Anisha Matthews, Ms. Lavina Levis, me, Anjali Gadgir, Mr. Shaukat Ali. All of us work as counselors with the Student Wellness Center as a part of a core counseling team. We have a Miss Amita Tagare as a officer on her special duty. Ma'am has a very extensive 30+ years of experience dealing with the students. And as I mentioned, we also have a psychometrician, Ms. Aditi Vaze, who specifically engages into conducting psychometric assessment for the students. Anjali, Dr. Anjali, you would like to add more to the functioning of SWC?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. May I ask Mr. Shaukat to advance the slide?
Yeah, previous slide.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So this, so I think probably I'll first start with how to access the services and then a little bit more about when and how. So as you can see, we have an appointment link here, and that is through the SWC web page. And in case there is no, sometimes there is some issue, technical issue, then you can also drop a mail. The student, the registered students of IITB can drop a mail to wellness@iitb.ac.in. Also, we do have a certain QR code which is accessible at different locations throughout the campus. We have put it near the hospital and near our office also. So that is also one mode of seeking appointment. We have a YouTube channel, which again we initiated during the lockdown, with a number of topics on mental health and coping strategies, especially with regard to COVID, but also general topics on psychological topics. So this you can access through this Core Counselors IITB, or you can search on YouTube for Core Counseling Team IITB. Since there were some queries collected from the students and faculty regarding that, how to identify some signs of stress in ourselves or others, or how to be a support for people who are undergoing stress. A number of these articles that were reviewed and curated by our team are on the Bandhu self-help website. Have many people, are many people aware of this website and have any accessed it? Maybe we can have a few reactions. Maybe raise a hand if you have accessed this site. I don't see any reactions. Okay. I was wondering if I could just, okay, one person, I'll just see. Okay, that's not a very big number. So I'll just give a brief introduction about Bandhu. So Bandhu is a self-help website of IIT Bombay, and it has a number of articles, some videos and quizzes, which is regarding some questions pertaining to mental health and emotional well-being, which are of a more general nature. So when we say individual counseling, it means you have a certain set of concerns and you wish to speak one-on-one to a counselor. Maybe, you have a question that, okay, no, I keep overthinking, or you say, I compare myself with others, or I have jealousy issues with somebody, or I don't know, is it right to feel this way, or should I be taking some steps about it, or I'm having a sleep issue. Is it something to be alarmed about, or is it not? Now, some of these questions, people may not be comfortable discussing on a group platform, and they may also not benefit solely from something that is there for a wider distribution, that is for a wider broadcast. So something that is on our channel is more for the general populace and specifically for the students of IITB. The articles, quizzes, and videos on Bandhu are of a similar nature, that they are covering a number of topics such as, insomnia, procrastination, time management, motivation, something more about feeling low, or some about some issues like how to help a friend who might be having self-harm thoughts. So they are good as an informative tool, and I would really suggest that you go out and check out some of those articles. And in case sometimes even after reading these or reading all the material available, you feel, no, I need to talk to somebody, or I'm feeling too distressed, and I'm feeling so much of emotional uneasiness that it's very difficult for me even to think out and make a coping strategy on my own, then it's best that you talk to a counselor one-on-one through the appointment link that we have mentioned in the previous slide. Since okay, I think somebody has raised this. Is there an error in the YouTube link? Okay, I think maybe, is it that we have shared the previous link? I think it's changed to Core Counseling Team IITB. Just please give me a second. I'll try to Google this and post the link here.
Yeah, I'll check, just a minute.
Core Counsel. Yeah, so Anjali Gadgil will Google the link and paste it in the chat box. And we are sorry for this error. I think we had to change the link a bit. Okay, so that should be accessible, but I'm glad somebody checked it out. And since in this month, we have also now restarted personal sessions, in-person sessions. So this is our address. It is the Student Wellness Center in the main building. And our timings are generally 9:30 to 5:30, the usual office timings. So Miss Anjali Gadgil has repasted the YouTube channel link in the chat box, so you can check that out. And this is we do take in walk-ins on an urgent basis. However, we would suggest that people who have concerns about meeting a one-on-one counselor should mail in for a pre-decided appointment, and we try to accommodate students as early as possible within a mutually convenient time. And our contact number is displayed here. If there is something more that is needed to be added, maybe Anjali or Shaukat can also prompt me for that. Sorry.
No, I was saying that you have covered most things about the address and how to reach out.
Thank you. Before I just hand over for the Q&A session, just one thing that I thought of mentioning here, that many a times a number of students do have academic problems, and they could be very specific. PhD students may be having issues with the working style of the guide, or some direction or lack of it, or sometimes they are having problem with the course load, or some have academic backlogs. So in such cases, we would always advise that, yes, you can definitely reach out to a counselor, to the self-help platform, and to other means. But please keep in touch with your faculty advisor / guide, as the case may be. So the people who are in the undergraduate courses, all of them have a faculty advisor. Even those in the PG courses have a faculty advisor in the first year. And those who are into research would have at least one research supervisor. So we would definitely say make them the first point of contact for academic issues. And even with respect to the faculty, I would request that if there's any student whom you feel that would need a referral to SWC or for any other support, it would be helpful to have a conversation with them one-on-one and see if there are any academic concerns as well. Because a lot of times we find that just a bit of concern and support and offer of advice from the faculty, it goes a long way towards helping the students, at least feeling reassured, if not getting a solution. So we would really request that some academic mentoring be also included while identifying and suggesting that people access the SWC as well. Thank you. I would hand over to Anjali Gadgil for the Q&A session. She can moderate and all of us can answer.
Yes, so any questions about the presentation or any other questions related to mental health stress, definitely you can unmute yourself and talk, or maybe type in the chat box.
So firstly, thank you very much to the SWC team. The reason I'm intervening right now is we had circulated this form, a completely anonymous form, just asking students if they had questions for you. And about 4 or 5 questions have come. Some I had shared with you, but I'll just copy paste those questions in the chat box because I think it will be useful for everybody to see those questions also.
Yes, ma'am.
And you may have covered some of these or many of these, but regardless, I think it's let me just put them there. And to the others in the audience, please feel free to build on these questions or ask the SWC team anything else you want, either for elaboration or anything else. So there's 5 questions and one last one from me, which you can do last. Yeah.
How does procrastination leads to anxiety and how to overcome that? Could I answer this?
Yes, Anjali, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, without going too much into the detailed process, because of course that would be a chapter in itself. But a simple thing here is that when somebody is procrastinating, as in putting off the tasks that they know have to be done at a certain time, and saying, okay, it will be done. And generally there could be 2 reasons behind it, very broadly speaking, that either there is this perfectionism and a fear of failure that, better to get it done before the deadline because then I have an adrenaline rush and it'll get done better than if I start now. And sometimes it is just a sense of inertia that, I have a lot of time and I'll do it later. How it leads to anxiety is because it keeps preying on somebody that, there is an unfinished task. And see, we all have this inner reality check where we know that whatever is happening is we are running out of time. And if not the quantity, then the quality of work will be affected. So instead of tackling the problem in a task-oriented way, the person may distract themselves by doing some other tasks which are not relevant to the pertinent problem. And the sense of having an unfinished task keeps on piling up. If anyone would like to add to that, I think, or else I'll go on to how to overcome that.
I think, yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll continue that. So anxiety doesn't lead, it may not necessarily lead to an anxiety disorder, but it leads to a state of anxiety, which if persistent could become, that's not the only reason. So how to overcome that here, I think it would require some specific techniques, and those could either be discussed in person with a individual counselor, or if you can refer to the Bandhu website, there is an entire article on procrastination, and there are articles on anxiety also, as well as time management, because I think one very basic antidote for procrastination would be to make a schedule and stick to it and employ strategies to ensure compliance with the schedule. So, I mean, that's it from a very brief method from my end at this point of time, but it definitely requires a more detailed discussion into the actual causes of procrastination as well. So that would be best done in a one-on-one session. Thank you.
Is there any questionnaire or a checklist of symptoms I can apply to identify if I have a mental health concern? So basically, it is not recommended to engage into a self-diagnosis on the basis of the questionnaire, because whenever it is about the diagnosis of a mental health concern as an illness, there has to be so many other factors which will be considered, and that has to be only done from the professionals, that to psychiatrists. So it is definitely not recommended, and also not advantageous to use any questionnaires or a checklist of a symptom to identify a mental health concern. No, visiting a professional is the most appropriate option to that, rather than taking a questionnaires. And even if there are so many such questionnaires available on the internet, and sometimes we end up taking and then we get the results, but it is also important not to consider those results as something, if there is some results have come out from the questionnaire, so believing them blindly is also not an appropriate option. So the most safe and most appropriate way is to reach out to the mental health professionals in that case. That's what I suggest. You can add Anjali and Shaukat, anything would like to add, definitely.
Yes, I think like when we are using these general questionnaires, what happens, we will try to fit into those questions, and then we will diagnose ourselves having a mental disorder, and then we will try to search the name of that mental disorder. Then we will find all the extreme symptoms, like
Yes.
when we are searching the side effects of the tablets we are taking for our like whatever doctors prescribe for us, so we will see very adverse side effects, and actually that is not the case. Most often it depends on the dose and everything. So in the same way, in psychological disorders, it's not yes or no, it's a continuum. Like most of the symptoms, like we all will do in our normal life, but when it escalates into another extreme, then only it will become a mental illness. So that we will we will feel that most of the symptoms are fitting into me, even though we are normal sometimes. So I think that there we have to be careful. And the good part that we have a counseling like a student wellness center, and we have psychiatrists, we have self-help website. All the facilities are available free of cost. So all students can make use of it instead of doing the self-diagnosis.
I think there is a next. Sometimes these feelings can escalate. When should I seek help? So I think as Mr. Shaukat has also covered, that seeking help can be possible at the different points also. Not necessarily it will be only in case you observe escalating the symptoms. So basically, seeking help can come at the 3 different levels. Only during the distress, like when you observe that my routine is getting affected, I am not following the healthy routine most of the times, my daily commitments in terms of my work also, my personal commitments also not they are getting affected a lot. So probably we are facing a distress. Disorder can be the more intense level, and sometimes preventive things, the development is also one of the area for which one can seek help. So specifically here, feeling can escalate. So basically the sign or the point at which one can seek help is when you observe that there is something not right with my routine. I'm not following my routine appropriately. I'm not following my professional as well as the other areas of my life are getting affected. That's I think one of the important sign of seeking the help.
Yes, like mostly when your behaviors, thoughts, and the emotions start interfering with your productivity and with your relationships and your daily routine, then yeah, probably you are in a stage of psychological disorder. Maybe it is mild or it may be moderate. Rarely there are severe psychological disorders. And one session of counseling sometimes will help you, that will bring you from confusion to the clarity. So when you are confused whether you are mentally healthy or not, then I think you can approach one of the counselors in Student Wellness Center, and that will help you to get into a clarity, like whether you should continue counseling sessions and whether you should take any medical or psychiatric treatment. So it's better to have at least one session of counseling if you are confused about your mental health.
Moving on to question 4, if I feel my friend is depressed, what should I do? How do I know if it is depression, and should I get worried, or is it normal as a PhD student? Being in a state of depression would not be, in the term of normal, would not be normal for anybody, because it is unhealthy. It is a maladjustment, or somebody is facing deficits in emotional functioning or in productivity, and more importantly, they are not feeling that joy inside. So it is something of concern. However, it is very difficult for a friend to diagnose the other with depression. So rather, if you notice any kind of the signs that we have talked about in our presentation, for example, feeling helpless or constantly crying or too much anxiety or guilt or overcompensation, then try to talk to that friend in private and with a lot of openness and sensitivity, and see if they are willing to talk to a mental health professional. And then you can persuade them to talk to one of the counselors. Also, again, I think you can refer to the Bandhu website, where it does talk about a friend. How do I talk to a friend who's facing difficulties or is thinking of self-harm? But definitely, if you see any signs of self-harm, or if somebody expresses suicidal thoughts, or if they say that, I feel like just giving up on everything, and what is the purpose of life, and they keep saying, or even if they say it once and they seem very despondent, do not take it lightly. Please do not try to also solve it by yourself. Inform your faculty, inform other friends. If there are mentors, inform them, and inform us, because a proper assessment would be needed of whether if it is the self-harm thoughts are escalating or not. So it is something of concern. I won't say get worried, but definitely take notice and take action. All right. Should I take on the 5th question as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I come to SWC, will you tell my parents or guide? Will I have to take medication? A very common question. See, we collect information about parents. We collect contact information of parents and about the guide for our records. But we have a policy of shared confidentiality, which means that we respect the confidentiality of the students. Whatever they are telling us in private and with a lot of trust and confided in us, we do not just share it with anybody. For assessment purpose, for diagnostic purpose, we may share it within the team if necessary, if it needs urgent attention. But in case there is a threat to the student's safety, or a threat to someone else's safety, or there is some element of self-harm involved, we might have to inform concerned stakeholders, be it their hostel warden, be it their guide, or be it their parents. If we would first of all encourage the student to inform other people themselves. But when it comes to the safety of the students, we do not take risks. So that is something that we would stand steadfast on. Now, coming to medication, see, not every kind of distress or every state of emotional unease would count as a disorder, as a psychological disorder. And not every psychological disorder needs medication. Some can be managed with counseling and psychotherapy or other forms of support. And some, where there are biochemical factors involved, would need medication. So we do not administer medication because it is the psychiatrist is a medical professional. So in case somebody, if there is a sense that somebody might perhaps need medication, an assessment is done and they might be referred to the psychiatrist. Okay. Please.
I think next is from Professor.
I just want to add here that in this question we can see that if kind of a fear or stigma related to mental health. Yeah, and the good news is that like now I am working as a student counselor since around 8 years, and as the time progress I can see that most of the students are feeling more and more comfortable to seek mental health. And also like our number of requests for counseling is drastically increasing nowadays. And also you can see our OPD for psychiatrists is full almost every day. All these shows that students are dare to ask help, and our new generation is coming out of this stigma, and that is a good sign. And all of us should come out of this stigma, and we should consider mental health problems same like as physical health related issues. Yeah. I just want to add this.
Yes.
So I think Shaukat has also answered the question below this. How do you overcome the taboo of talking about mental health?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So maybe 6th question.
So I think the question from Professor Sana, as a department, what can we do to support students? Any do's, don'ts for faculty, and when should we refer to SWC? First of all, thank you so much, ma'am, for giving this opportunity to us to present, about the mental health, the topic related to mental health, which we presented in the meeting. So that is the most, I think I really appreciate that part from your end. And I think beyond that, as Anjali also mentioned, that there can be, initially there can be academic concerns probably leading to or correlated with the emotional distress. So SWC and the team will require the most support from you in terms of dealing with the academic concerns. And first, I would also, as Anjali also mentioned, that I think first interaction with the students, trying to identify if there are any academic issues if they are facing. So that could be the, if that happens in the first interaction with the professors or the guide or with the faculty advisors, that would be really helpful. There are no specific do's and don'ts I think I can think of, but if Anjali and Shaukat, you would like to add anything to that?
So I think we'll just like to reiterate the earlier point that one conversation with the student between the faculty and the student would give a lot of direction and reassurance to the student. So whether it turns out to be purely an academic concern or there are personal concerns involved. So maybe not push the student to reveal the personal concerns if they are not comfortable. But if sometimes they just want to open up. So if they do, then they can be also referred to the SWC for the personal concerns. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. There's a question about how to get access to the psychometric test, which you mentioned. So basically, this psychometric test, there are different types of standardized psychometric assessments which we conduct at the SWC, and they are not open in general for all the students, because before deciding which assessment is appropriate or suitable for the student, we need to take basic understanding of the concerns is important. So in the first few sessions, in individual sessions, counselor definitely would try and understand more about the concerns, and then we decide which psychometric assessment is appropriate. So accordingly, we request the psychometrician Aditi about the same. So access is, I think, through SWC. It's not accessible in the open source.
And to add to it, like Mr. Shaukat had also earlier added that it is not advisable to use these online freely available tests, because many a times they lead to self-diagnosis and self-labeling. However, there are certain curated tests that, like, again, are available on the self-help website, and they are on more general topics. They are not diagnostic tests. So for fun or just to get an introduction to that, one can access those. But a proper comprehensive assessment can only be done under a supervised psychometric test, which will have to be through the SWC. This is for the students. For faculty and staff, it has to be through the hospital, IIT hospital. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll hand over to Professor Murthy.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Anjali Gadgil and Shaukat, for your very clear answers. Let me just ask the students once again, especially the first years, or those of you who have never come to campus, or first years, the reason I'm saying is, a lot of you have said in the past few weeks that you're struggling with course load and not being on campus and all. Anything that has not been addressed yet that you would like to ask? You can take a minute. And also anything, of course, anything from the senior students, definitely, or the faculty. Any other things. Faculty are often put in the situation where students might confide, and that was why I had asked the earlier question. But if there's anything else, this would be a good time.
Yeah, I'll ask one question. So I am a faculty member in the department, and suppose I feel that a student should consult the SWC, and I've talked to the student also, but the student resists, and I feel that it's going downhill, and the student continues to resist. What do I do then?
Professor, in case there is an urgent, if there is any urgent distress that is perceived, in case you feel there is a threat to the safety or life of the student, I think any of the concerned stakeholders in the campus, if the student is on campus, including the hostel warden or the dean of student affairs and the SWC, can be informed in confidence that this is a student of concern, because many a times we do have faculty referring the students to us. However, in case they are unwilling, I think we would need some kind of, at some stage, some sort of a parental intervention also, because parents being the primary caregivers, it is sometimes very helpful to get them in the loop if we feel that if it's really a case of urgent distress. So one is, of course, to inform us, and we also try from our end to reach out. And sometimes that works because they may not talk to the faculty, but they may talk to us. However, in case of any kind of a threat, perceived threat, it's just better to inform the security or the dean SA as soon as possible. And we'll definitely be part of the intervention in that.
Okay, thank you.